Okay, this video is going to show the dividing decimals. So I did the first few here. So remember, you're moving that decimal in one spot here. You do the same thing on this side. Move the decimal in one spot here. That's why you'll see down here at the bottom that the decimal is gone from here because it got moved over in front of the 9. Technically, it still would be there, but we don't need the decimal showing. And then similarly here with this one here up at the top, after the 8, you moved it over one here. So it goes between the two twos, which is in that spot. Same thing here, move the decimal over one. So now it's just 76. Move the decimal over one. Now it's just 342. Same thing here, decimal over one, decimal over one. So always with your number on the outside here, there should be no decimal because the decimal needs to move over. Always, just like on the next one here, move that decimal over one, changing that 9.3 to 93. Then you do the same thing on the inside. It's between the 8 and the 5. You move it over one. Now it's between the 5 and the 9. So you switch the number to 5, 85.9. So you should get in the habit of doing that. That should become the easy part to these problems. Now you need to use your estimation and your multiplication skills to figure out the rest of this. So I would look at this number here. Now, obviously, 93 cannot go into 5, and 93 cannot go into 58. So you're going to need to think that it's going to go into 585 how many times. So I would look at the 9 here in front and write it over here. And I would try to find a pretty nice rounded number to round this one to. Or I would use the first two digits here, like the 58. And think about a number that's a multiple of 9 that's very near 58. I know 9 times 7 is 63, but that would most likely give me too much. I know 9 times 6 is 54, right? So if I change this to 54, that'd be 6, right? So that might be my answer, but remember, this part is a little tricky. It takes patience. It's going to be close to around here. It might be times a 7. It might even be too much now, and it might need to be 9 times 5. Because remember, it's not just 9. There's a number after the 9, which is a 3. And that's going to change the multiple and what it's going to be over here underneath this. But most likely it's going to be around the number 6. So let's give it a try. Let's do 93 times 6. And let's see if we're close enough to the 585. So I do 6 times 3, which is 18. 8 down, 1 up. And then 6 times 9 is 54. Plus 1 is 55. So 558. Now you should be able to tell by looking that that's going to work. You should know that the difference between those two numbers is not greater than 93. It's going to be less than 93. So that number is going to work. So we are going to write that number 6 up on top here. Another thing I'm going to do is I'm going to already put my decimal here. Because I see the decimal here, I know it's going to need to go up there. So that's another thing I'm going to do that sometimes students forget to do. Put that decimal up there. So right when it's available after this first number, if it fits in there, put that decimal in that spot so you don't forget later. Now you do your subtraction. So you're going to borrow from the 8, change it to a 7. This would be a 15. Then you're going to subtract the 15 minus 8, which is 7, and the 7 minus 5, which is 2. So you're left with 27. Then you drop down the next number, which is a 9. Now you move the decimal up here. You do not need to drop it down. Just put this 9 down. So you do not need to drop down that decimal. So now we're going to go 93 into 279. So immediately you should hopefully be able to see, like I did over here on this side. You should immediately be able to see this 9 here and this 27. you should already have an idea of what your answer is going to be. You should know 9 times 3 gives me 27. So that's most likely going to be the answer. Let's give it a try. 93 times 3. So 3 times 3 is 9. 3 times 9 is 27. And that works out perfectly. 279. I'm going to put the 3 up here, and there will be no remainder. So this would be my final answer here, 6.3. Okay, I'll do a couple more. So this one here, decimal over 1, change it to 59. Decimal over 1, change it to 354. Now we need to use our estimation skills. So I'm going to look at the 5 here. I'm going to look at that 35. That works out pretty nicely because you should know 5 times 7 is 35. However, let's test this out because remember, it's not just the 5. There's a 9 after it. It won't always work out, but let's see. 59 times 7. 7 times 9 is 63. 3 down, 6 up. 7 times 5 is 35. Plus 6 is 41. Now you see, this is a great example of here of when it does not always work. We thought it was going to be 7 because we had this 5 here. We see the 35 here. But times 7 gives me too large of a number. Remember, your number down here cannot be larger. It needs to be smaller. So if this was too much, this should make it easier now because we know 7 was too much. Let's try 6. So let's do 59 times 6. This should work. 6 times 9 is 54. 4 down, 5 up. 6 times 5 is 30. 30 plus 5 is 35. So you see, this works out perfectly. Put the 6 up here. No remainder. So sometimes it works out nicely like that. We only had to pick one different number besides that 7. So let's try another one. Let's do this one here. So decimal over 1, change it to 71. Decimal over 1, change it to 120.7. Okay, now, another thing you can also do, you can already put the decimal up here so you don't forget, or you can do it after you write the number in here. Either way is fine. But if you're forgetting to write the decimals on your answers, just do it right away. Okay, now let me look at the number here, 7, and the number here, 12. So I should already know that 7 times 2 is 14, and that would be too much. So am I going to do 71 times 1? Let's see if that's going to work out. 71 times 1. And you shouldn't even need to show any work for that, right? Because you know 71 times 1 is 71. Okay, now we're going to need to borrow. From here, change it to a 1. This turns into 10. 10 minus 1 is 9. Now we need to also borrow from here. That changes to 0. This changes to 11. 11 minus 7 is 4. And that works out because 49 is less than 71. So this is 1, that's correct. Now we need to drop down this 7. And you should hopefully already immediately see this. Most of these problems are going to work out this way. So you see the 7 here, and you see the 49. You should immediately think 7 will be the answer, but let's test it to make sure. 71 times 7. 7 times 1 is 7. 7 times 7 is 49. And there it is. It works out perfectly. Times 7, 497, no remainder. So remember, do the easy part first, right? Just move that decimal, okay? Rewrite the problem. And then you have to use your multiplication skills. Use a little bit of estimation sometimes. to figure out what that answer might be. Now this next one here is a little bit tricky, right? You see the 1 here, and then you see a 16. Okay, now that's going to be a little tough, right? Because 1 into 16 might not work out. For some of these, if you see a higher number like 17, it's close to 20, you might want to change that 1 to a 2, and then the 2 into 16. That's going to help to narrow down your answer, right? Because 2 times 8 is 16. Now that might work here with this 17. Let's check. Let's check 17 times into that 16 there. But you see, that's not going to work because it's going to be 168. So that's not always going to work out properly. So you need to go through it and guess and check and do what works for you. For this one, since it's a little bit of a different number with this 1 in front, you might want to go 20. And instead of just changing this to a 1-digit number, you might want to round that 17 up to 20 and round that 168 into 160. Remember, you want to use the numbers that will work out best for you. Now, according to this, it's going to be 8 times. But we need to do the 8 with the 17. Because remember, it might still be too much. So let's do 17 times 8 and see if it is going to work out. 8 times 7 is 56. 6 down, 5 up. 8 times 1 is 8. Plus 5 is 13. 136. So that might not work out. That's going to be, I think, not enough. Because I believe the difference is going to be more than 17. Let me just erase this here to show you. So if we did 136 and we subtracted, yes, the difference is going to be 32. So that's not enough. So this 8 was not enough. So this work we did over here, it helped us. It's not 8 though. It's not enough, right? It's 32 difference. So we're going to pick this 8 up to a 9. We're going to do 17 times 9 instead, and we'll see if that is going to be closer. So 9 times 7 is 63. 3 down, 6 up. 9 times 1 is 9. Plus 6 is 15. That's going to be better. 153. So I am going to use the 9 up here. And I'm also going to put my decimal before I forget. This will give us a difference of 15. Then I drop down to 3. And you shouldn't need to do any more estimation or anything else because you already see the answer over here. It's going to be 9 again because the 17 times the 9, like we did here, is 153. So it's going to be tough to start. You'll have to do some estimating and guessing and checking and going through some different numbers. But it should work out at the end so you're able to get that final number.